In the realm of ancient Greek mythology, there exists a creature that strikes terror into the hearts of those who dare cross its path, the Gorgon. These monstrous beings, with their fearsome features and petrifying gaze, have captured the imaginations of storytellers and scholars for centuries. But where did these nightmarish beings come from, and how did the myth of the Gorgons come to be? To unravel the origins of the Gorgon myth, we must journey back in time to a world steeped in legend and mysticism. In the earliest tales, the Gorgons were not born of human imagination but were instead ancient beings who predated the Olympian gods themselves. They were said to be the daughters of the primordial sea deities Phorcys and Ceto, making them siblings to other monstrous beings like the Gri and the Hesperides. These monstrous sisters, known as Stheno, Uriel, and the most famous of them all, Medusa, possessed a grotesque appearance that struck fear into anyone who gazed upon them. They were described as having snakes for hair, bronze hands, and wings of gold. Their most terrifying feature, however, was their eyes, which had the power to turn anyone who met their gaze into stone. This ability, the petrifying stare, became the defining characteristic of the Gorgons and the centerpiece of their myth. The myth of the Gorgons likely emerged as a reflection of the ancient Greeks' fascination with the monstrous and the unknown. These beings embodied the fears and anxieties of a society that often felt vulnerable to external threats. The Gorgon's petrifying gaze could be seen as a metaphor for the paralyzing effects of fear itself, a universal human experience. One of the most famous accounts of the Gorgons can be found in the epic poem The Iliad, attributed to the ancient Greek poet Homer. In this epic, the hero Perseus is tasked with slaying the Gorgon Medusa and bringing back her head as a prize. He embarks on a perilous journey, armed with a reflective shield, a magical sword, and winged sandals gifted to him by the gods. Perseus ultimately succeeds in beheading Medusa, and her severed head retains its petrifying power even in death. The Gorgons also make appearances in other Greek myths, such as the story of Perseus and Andromeda, and their terrifying visages continue to haunt the pages of ancient literature. However, it's essential to note that the Gorgons were not purely malevolent figures in every account. Some stories suggest that they were protectors of sacred spaces, guarding treasures hidden from mortal eyes. As the centuries passed, the myth of the Gorgons evolved, adapting to the changing beliefs and cultural contexts of different eras. In Roman times, for instance, they became more closely associated with the concept of evil and were often depicted as monstrous creatures in artwork and literature. The Gorgons, those infamous monsters of ancient Greek mythology, found their origins in the deep recesses of human imagination and the primordial chaos of the ancient world. They were born of sea deities, their features exaggerated to embody the deepest fears of humanity. Their story, passed down through generations, served as a reminder of the power of myth to explore and express the profound anxieties and mysteries of the human experience. The Gorgons, with their petrifying gaze and serpentine hair, remain timeless symbols of both fascination and terror, enduring through the ages as captivating and enduring figures in the rich tapestry of mythology. The Gorgons, those legendary and fearsome creatures of Greek mythology, are often depicted as malevolent and monstrous beings. But what were their desires and goals, if any, in the rich tapestry of ancient tales? In the classic myths, the Gorgons didn't seem to possess specific ambitions or grand goals like many other mythological beings. Instead, their existence revolved around their innate nature and fearsome attributes. The most famous among them, Medusa, was cursed with the power to turn anyone who met her gaze into stone. This ability wasn't a means to an end or a calculated pursuit of any particular objective. It was an inherent part of her being. The Gorgons were more like natural forces or living embodiments of the terrifying and unpredictable aspects of the world. They were akin to the thunderstorms or earthquakes of mythology, forces of nature that could wreak havoc without intention or purpose. In this sense, their goal was simply to exist as they were, embodying the fears and anxieties of the ancient Greeks. However, in some interpretations of their myth, the Gorgons did serve as protectors of certain sacred spaces. For instance, they were said to guard the entrance to the underworld, ensuring that only the worthy or those with divine guidance could enter. In this role, their goal could be seen as safeguarding the secrets and treasures hidden within the realm of the dead. As with many mythical creatures, the motivations and goals of the Gorgons evolved over time and were shaped by the various narratives and interpretations they appeared in. In some versions of the tales, they were seen as tragic figures, cursed by the gods and isolated from society due to their monstrous appearance. In others, they were cast as outright villains, with heroes like Perseus seeking to vanquish them for the greater good. In summary, the Gorgons, those enigmatic beings from Greek mythology, didn't possess specific ambitions or goals in the traditional sense. Instead, they were symbols of the chaotic and unpredictable aspects of existence, their petrifying gaze a reflection of the paralyzing power of fear. Their roles and attributes varied in different versions of their myth, sometimes cast as protectors and at other times as antagonists. Their essence lay in their unsettling and monstrous nature, making them enduring and captivating figures in the world of myth and legend. In the realm of Greek mythology, the lore of Gorgon society remains shrouded in mystery, as these monstrous beings are often depicted as solitary and isolated figures rather than as members of a structured society. However, there are a few intriguing aspects to consider regarding their interactions and potential hierarchy. First and foremost, it's essential to note that the Gorgons were typically portrayed as sisters. Stheno, Uriel, and Medusa were considered the most prominent among them. While they were blood relatives, their relationships were complex, and their interactions were not well documented in the myths. One could speculate that, as sisters, the Gorgons might have had some form of familial bond. They may have shared a common purpose or goal, perhaps related to guarding certain sacred spaces or treasures. However, their individual personalities and roles within this hypothetical Gorgon society remain largely unexplored. In some interpretations, Medusa, the most famous of the Gorgons, is singled out as the most monstrous and dangerous due to her petrifying gaze. This could imply a potential hierarchy within the trio, with Medusa as the dominant figure. Yet, it's crucial to remember that the Gorgons were not conventional beings with desires for power or control over others. They were embodiments of terror and chaos. Another facet to consider is their isolation from mortal society. The Gorgons were often depicted as dwelling in remote and inaccessible locations, such as the far reaches of the world or even beyond it. This isolation could be seen as a form of self-imposed exile, driven by their monstrous appearances and the fear they inspired in others. Furthermore, some myths suggest that the Gorgons were cursed by the gods, which would have further separated them from both divine and mortal society. Their monstrous traits were not of their choosing but rather the result of divine punishment, reinforcing their status as outcasts. While the lore of Gorgon society is not extensively detailed in Greek mythology, we can infer that their interactions, if any, were likely complex and influenced by their familial ties, isolation, and their monstrous natures. Whether there was a hierarchy among them remains a matter of interpretation, with Medusa often taking a central role due to her iconic status. Nevertheless, the Gorgons' existence was primarily defined by their fearsome attributes and their role as symbols of the unknown, and the terrifying in the ancient Greek world. The concept of Gorgon hunters is not a prominent theme in Greek mythology, as the Gorgons were typically solitary or depicted as existing in small, familial groups. However, there is one legendary figure who stands out as a Gorgon hunter, and that is the hero Perseus. Perseus is renowned for his quest to slay the Gorgon Medusa and bring back her head as a prize. His successful hunt was not a straightforward endeavor but rather a perilous journey filled with cunning tactics and divine assistance. Perseus received critical aid from the gods to accomplish his mission. He was equipped with a mirrored shield from Athena, which allowed him to avoid Medusa's petrifying gaze by looking at her reflection. He also received winged sandals from Hermes, a helmet of invisibility, the cap of Hades, and a sword harp, specially designed for this dangerous task. Perseus recognized the need for stealth and cunning in his pursuit. To approach Medusa without alerting her, he used his winged sandals to fly to the remote island where she dwelled. He also used the reflective shield to guide his strike, as he couldn't directly gaze upon her. Perseus waited for Medusa to sleep before making his move. Her slumber rendered her vulnerable, and he capitalized on this moment to strike and decapitate her. The sword Perseus used, harp, was specifically designed for this task. It allowed him to make a swift and precise strike to sever Medusa's head without awakening her or risking her gaze. Before embarking on his quest, Perseus sought guidance from the Gree, three ancient sisters who shared a single eye. He cunningly took their eye and used it as leverage to learn the location of the Gorgons and obtain other crucial information. While Perseus is the most famous Gorgon hunter in Greek mythology, his hunt was a unique and exceptional endeavor, shaped by divine assistance and his own resourcefulness. The concept of Gorgon hunting was not a common theme, as the Gorgons were often seen as enigmatic and remote figures, shrouded in mythic symbolism rather than as creatures to be systematically hunted. In the world of Greek mythology, the Gorgon hunters were few and far between, and Perseus's quest remains the most celebrated and enduring tale of their kind. The mythological creature known as the Gorgon has a captivating and multifaceted presence across various cultures throughout history. While its most famous iteration hails from Greek mythology, Gorgon-like beings with petrifying gazes and fearsome appearances can be found in other cultures as well. Here are some intriguing facts about Gorgons from various traditions. In Greek mythology, the Gorgons are often depicted as three sisters, the most famous being Medusa. These monstrous beings have snakes for hair, bronze hands, and a petrifying gaze. They were the offspring of the sea deities Phorcys and Ceto, and were known to inhabit remote and inaccessible places. Medusa's transformation into a Gorgon is often attributed to her role in desecrating the temple of Athena by having a romantic tryst with Poseidon within its sacred walls. Athena punished her by turning her into a hideous creature. The severed head of Medusa, with its petrifying gaze intact even in death, became a symbol of protection against evil. In some versions of Greek mythology, Medusa's head was used as a weapon by various heroes. It was said to have the power to turn enemies to stone, making it a formidable tool in battle. The image of the Gorgon, with her petrifying stare and grotesque appearance, has been used throughout history as a symbol of protection. Gorgon heads were often placed on shields, doorways, and other objects to ward off evil and negativity. In Roman mythology, the Gorgons retained their fearsome reputation and petrifying gaze. They were often depicted as antagonistic forces, and their portrayal was consistent with the Greek myths. Similar creatures with petrifying gazes can be found in other cultures. For instance, in Hindu mythology, there's the story of the demoness Suresa, who could change her appearance and petrify anyone who looked at her directly. Gorgon-like beings have made their way into modern literature, film, and popular culture. They often embody themes of monstrousness, transformation, and the power of the gaze. The Gorgon's gaze has also been interpreted psychologically as a symbol of the paralyzing and destructive effects of fear. It represents the idea that facing one's fears directly can lead to transformation and empowerment. The Gorgon myth evolved over time, adapting to the cultural and societal contexts of different eras. In each iteration, the Gorgons remained captivating and enduring symbols of both fascination and terror. The Gorgon is a captivating figure that transcends the boundaries of Greek mythology and has left an indelible mark on global culture. Whether as a symbol of protection, a representation of fear, or a character in epic tales, the Gorgon continues to fascinate and intrigue, reminding us of the enduring power of myth and legend.